Hi, Zerve Elvray Ballandar Perot from the Tree Gardener, and we're looking again at another tree. Every tree is different, and we don't have this set way on how the tree should look. We examine each one for who they are, and we check them out and see what they've been doing and why they've been doing it and what happened to them, and look at the past cuts and watch the growth that came from those cuts. You can learn a whole lot by looking at a lot of different trees that have been pruned by other people. And you see the cut, see the compartmentalizing, the donut that starts closing over. You're wanting that to be even on all the way around the edge, should be the same size. And then you want that new growth to be protected from the sun. So we're dabbing with clay sometimes if we know we had to make a cut, but it's going to be, that cut isn't facing north, it's facing south, and the new growth is going to get burned because it's tender in the beginning. So protect it, you know, with either wrap or paint. And then we look at how the cuts that were made before affect the tree and how the tree reacted, and exposing it to sun or putting all the weight on the end or causing a cut so big that it wasn't able to compartmentalize the whole space before rot became the main deal going on and starts rotting into the trunk, and then it weakens the collar for that next branch. So when you cut a leader to a branch, and that leader cut can become the weak point for this branch that is all you have left. So you have to think ahead when you make a cut on what effect it's going to have on other parts of the tree and the overall health of the tree. Not just what we want from it to get it away from the roof or up above our heads or not so big, and we just cut it to do that purpose without understanding the results, the true results from those cuts. So then you look and watch how this tree reacts, and look at how trees reacted to past cuts, and walk around and check it out. And so we're seeing the energy moved again to the branches, and then it goes to the top branches. Those top branches get so much energy, they start growing, and then there's a need sometimes to have the top branch be the low branch and keep that to grow and loop over and be accessible when it's killing everything underneath it. So ideally you want to try to create the lower branches to be a little bit higher and shorter, like Christmas tree to a degree, to where the lower limbs can reach the outside edge and get some sun without being too leggy. And then if you're thinning up above more than below, then what happens is you allow inside growth on the longer limbs that are down in the bottom. So they're not all tip heavy and they end up breaking later. We want growth in there to create taper in the beginning of the branch for the long haul all the way out to be out of the edge of the rest of the tree. So we want to get some inside growth in there without causing sunburn, but getting some limbs to make stoutness. And then you have fruit within, and you don't have to let the branch grow so long, and you can keep the size that's needed for it to keep from breaking apart. And so what we see is a leader cut and a sharp bend. Boom. That's not a natural structure bend. That's meaning that the top got cut and the first branch going out is where the energy went. And then it got really thick. We've been working on this tree for 4 years or 5 years, and you can see the tail. The claw is just really heavy. It gets exposed to sun because the only thing protecting that area, there was no growth in there because the top was thick. The top leader was thick. It didn't get growth on the inside of that leader. They cut the leader off, and this stem becomes exposed to sun because it didn't get growth from before because that leader top was too thick. But then they take it off, and then it goes energy full on board to the end where all the limbs are, and they get real heavy. They lay down more. They get sunburned. They get weak because the top gets burned. Cambium dies, and then that heavy claw causes too much weight, and the limb will fail. So if you see the steps and the cycle and where it's going from what happens, then you will be very sensitive to how you cut and read it. And every cut should have a reason that helps the tree. And we continue to see the thickness and the low depth from the top being too thick. and the inside was dying, and the inside was getting pecked with sapsuckers really heavy. There's different kinds of damages for trunks from the sun throughout the year. Straight up when the sun is high in the sky in the summer, that's those limbs that bent over from being too heavy, and they're going to get burned on the top of them. Or trees that got opened up too much with open vase and open globe, and that south part of the north and east limbs and that and west limbs get burned on the top there. When we prune to get an open vase, if that's what you want to do, we're not bearing the limbs for the structure limbs to be the open vase shape. We're keeping inside growth that is starting low, so that tier will be lower, and it works up the branches that are the structure branches. The structure branches are not the only shape that you're going to be getting. You want natural shape from having all the leaves you need for doing the purpose of either causing taper or shading the tree. And we're not pruning for shape, we're pruning for structure and health, and shape comes looking good because it's the naturalist, closest way for the tree, and it'll look good to you because it's maybe proper for the tree, you know. And so it has a look of survival, it has a look of structure, not being too leggy. It looks strong. Sun's getting underneath the limbs into the other limbs. There isn't domination, there's harmony, there's evenness throughout the thinning. Nothing's getting fried and nothing's staying too cool in there and getting too shaded. Disease is being kept out of there, you know. Sapsucker work on the trunk can cause, you know, the flow to slow down and a lot of bleeding to happen. So sometimes you put a hard guard on there and protect that space for a while until branches grow and leaves grow, and then it'll slow down that early running of sap, and kind of slows down the attack from the sapsuckers. They're hitting that southeast side right now this time of year, you know. And if they've been exposed through improper pruning, they're like bare, and they just nail them. So there's another way of looking. There's a lot to look at. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to learn, and this is just some of the stuff that I've learned on how to get in touch and see what the tree's experiencing, how the environment has affected it, how the pruning has affected it. Is it comfortable? Is it getting what it needs? And just kind of improve whatever you can for it. And it's endless how much abundance a tree can offer when it's comfortable, you know. So we try to help along with that trip. So thanks, and we'll see more about how to look at trees.